I like the idea of a label being abling. I love that phrase. I think it's a really nice way to look at it. But I can see, and maybe it goes deeper into like a personality type more than anything, that people will use that label to go, oh, well, that's who I am. I'm never going to be anything different, and I'm not going to push past anything, when arguably they've got the capability of doing it, but they're using to hide behind that label or just use it more of an excuse. But I do like the idea of abling it, because that episode we did on personality profiles the other week, actually, I loved that, because like for me, I'm like, oh, I can see why I am the way I am now, because it's got a name for it. I was like, oh, okay, I can lean into that strong D type and go, that is me, and everybody can see it, and I couldn't, and I'm like, oh, that makes sense, I can see it now. So, but I look at that as an enabling thing, and I think the personality type of myself is, I love learning about it even more, so I'm just going to keep going into it, but I'm not going to own myself as that person, because I'll have other factors and variables, and the context changes all the time with loads of different things. So it's, I do think a lot of it is that personality bit as well, and how you're going to perceive that label.
We were talking about this with a friend yesterday, actually, and it was saying the difference is that you can see what you want as a neurodiverse person isn't it isn't like excuses. You just want accommodations in certain situations, and if you have, let's say, a physical disability, you get those accommodations because it's physical, and nobody thinks that's a, everyone thinks that's the norm, right? So if you were sat, we had a really good one we were talking about. So let's say somebody in a wheelchair like ran over somebody by mistake when they were trying to get on a bus, like ran over someone's foot, something like that, right? Like everybody, and the person whose foot got run over, not everyone obviously, but most people would go, oh, that wasn't deliberate, that was an accident, they were trying to get on the bus, it was more difficult for them than it is for me, I shouldn't have been in their way. And they would say, oh, don't worry about it, no problem, and they would probably help the disabled person get on the bus. If somebody who had ADHD then did exactly the same thing, so stepped on that person's foot because their attention had been grabbed by, let's say, something shiny on the right hand side, and their brain had, through no control of their own, because I've seen this with having a long-term relationship with someone that's got ADHD and an ADHD son. They don't have control over this stuff. Like, they get distracted by something and they stand on that person's foot. The ADHD person is wrong. That was their fault, right? Because that disability is not visible. But it's exactly the same situation. They technically made a mistake that upset that other person through no fault of their own. But because it's not a visible thing, it becomes their fault. And that's the difference between having a difference that is not seen and one that is seen. I don't think people who are neurodiverse want to be, I don't know what the right word is, like given more accommodations than anybody else would be, but just understood in that, like in the same way, but that's all it is. So it's not, you don't want an excuse made for you. You still want to do everything that everybody else does, but it's just nice to have people understand.